Imagine being given an old, mummified monkey's paw and being told it can grant you 3 wishes. Sounds like a dream, right? But there's a catch. The wishes will come true in ways you never expected and never wanted. That's the dark premise of The Monkey's Paw, a short horror story written by W. Jacobs in 1902. It's one of the most famous be careful what you wish for tales in literature, and it explores what happens when ordinary people try to control fate. It was a cold, stormy night. Inside a small house, on the edge of a quiet village, Mr. White, his wife Mrs. White, and their adult son Herbert were enjoying a peaceful evening by the fire. They were a close-knit family, simple, warm, and full of laughter. The wind howled outside, but inside all was calm. Soon there was a knock at the door. It was Sergeant Major Morris, an old family friend who had just returned from many years of military service in India. He brought stories of strange lands and foreign magic, and one object that would change the Whites' lives forever: a small dried-up monkey's paw. According to Morris, the paw had been cursed by a wise old fakir, a holy man, to prove that fate rules our lives and that those who try to change it suffer for it. The paw had the power to grant 3 wishes to its owner, but at a terrible cost. Morris had seen firsthand the destruction the paw had caused. He had tried to get rid of it many times, but it always came back. In frustration, he threw the paw into the fire. But Mr. White, curious and skeptical, snatched it out. "Think carefully before you wish," Morris warned. "Better let it burn." Later that night, after Morris had gone, the Whites laughed about the idea of the monkey's paw. It all seemed like superstition. "Why don't you wish for something useful?" Herbert joked, "like 200 pounds to pay off the house." So Mr. White held the paw and wished for 200 pounds. The paw twisted in his hand with a sudden jerk. It startled him, but nothing happened. The family laughed it off and went to bed. The next day, Herbert went to work at the local factory. But by afternoon, a man in a formal suit arrived at the house. He looked nervous, grief-stricken. He brought tragic news. Herbert had been killed in a horrible accident at work. The company offered their condolences and compensation. The amount was 200 pounds, the exact amount Mr. White had wished for. The room fell silent. Mrs. White screamed in grief. Mr. White collapsed in horror. They had made a wish, and they had received it, but not in the way they hoped. Days passed. The house grew quiet, filled only with grief and emptiness. Then one night, Mrs. White, her face wild with sorrow, turned to her husband with a new idea. "Wish him back," she whispered. "Wish our son back." Mr. White was terrified, but couldn't refuse. He took the paw in trembling hands and made the second wish. "I wish my son alive again." For a while, nothing happened. Then in the deep silence of night, there came a knock at the front door. Slow, heavy, measured. Mrs. White jumped up, eyes shining. "It's him!" she cried. "It's Herbert!" She ran to open the door, but the bolt was stuck. She struggled and called for Mr. White to help. But Mr. White had heard the knock too, and he was filled with terror. He remembered how mangled Herbert's body had been after the accident. If Herbert had come back, what had come back? As Mrs. White fought with the bolt, Mr. White searched desperately for the monkey's paw. Just before the door could open, he found it. He made the third and final wish. The knocking stopped. When Mrs. White opened the door, no one was there. Just the empty road and the cold night wind. The Monkey's Paw is considered a classic because it masterfully blends suspense, supernatural horror, and moral philosophy into a tightly woven short story that still resonates over a century later. Written by W. Jacobs in 1902, it explores universal themes: fate versus free will, the danger of unchecked desire, and the emotional cost of grief, in a way that is both haunting and timeless. Its eerie atmosphere, minimalist structure, and shocking twist have influenced countless modern horror tales and be careful what you wish for narratives. With its ability to provoke fear, not through monsters, but through deeply human emotion and psychological consequence, The Monkey's Paw has secured its place as a foundational work in the Gothic and horror literature canon. I hope you enjoyed today's story. If you did, please consider subscribing to this channel. We have many more chilling tales still to come.